Welcome back, everybody. This March 21st, 2022, and this is the first in-person Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting for Raleigh this year, and we only had one last year, so this is the first time we're seeing a lot of our new commissioners, and I'm just very excited to have everybody here. This is great. So I'm going to let everybody do their own introductions for the first time in quite a while, and please say your name and where you live and what you're doing on the BPAC. And I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Stern.
Hi there. I'm Tammy Stern. I'm at 608 Washington Street in Raleigh. I'm here as a bike advocate and also with training as a city planner. Professionally, I do affordable housing development.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gellenbeck is dealing with a personal issue at her house, and she might be here later. And that brings us to Commissioner Thor. And is there a better way that we can get a microphone on Commissioner Thor?
See if I can get a little bit closer. Is it hard to hear me down there?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can. Hi, great. So my name is Michael Thor, owner of Whiskey Kitchen. Live downtown in the Lincoln Apartments. God, I just tried to turn that off. And yeah, I'm big proponent of the downtown area. Really enjoy it. We can make it better.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bravo Taylor.
My name is Celise Bravo Taylor. I work as an architect and I live in Southeast Raleigh, and I'm on the planning committee.
Thank you. And we have Commissioner Tong.
Pierre Tong. I'm on the planning committee, and I live at 2508 Noble Road in the Five Points area.
Commissioner Alley is not yet with us. My name is Dwight Otwell. I live in North Hills. I am the current chair of the BPAC, and so I'm privileged to sit in on all the commissions and see what everybody's going on and not get much work done myself. So with that, I'll pass it over to Commissioner Neptune.
I'm Nick Neptune, vice chair of the commission here with Chairman Otwell. Live in Southeast Raleigh at 209 Haywood Street, and I serve as our chair of the Outreach Committee, and I work during the day as the Associate Director of Wake Up Wake County for smart and sustainable growth in our community.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. I'm Brian Thomas. I live at 1121 Harper Road, which I can tell you is exactly 3.2 miles from this building because I tracked it. I work at NC State, where I biked to work today and biked home. I did have to drive here because I'm just south of the Beltline, which is a little frustrating to have to drive to the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting, but happy to be here nonetheless. So.
And Commissioner Caruso.
Yeah, I'm Joe Caruso. I live in North Raleigh, 8813 Harpers Mill Road, and I am the current chair of the Policy Committee.
Thank you. And now I'm going to turn on to staff and B. Pearson.
Okay. I'm B. Pearson. I am the Bicycle and Pedestrian Outreach Coordinator.
And Ms. Barbara Godwin.
I'm Barbara Godwin. I'm the Micromobility Coordinator.
And very pleased to introduce our new Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Manager, Ms. Fontaine Barres.
Fontaine Barres, Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Manager. That feels weird.
And Mr. Paul Callum.
Yeah, Paul Callum, City of Raleigh, one of the Assistant Transportation Directors.
All right. And we have Ms. Christina Jones, who is our liaison over in the gallery.
Yes, Christina Jones. I'm sorry, I saw her at our event. No, hi again. I am from the Parks Board and many other things in Raleigh, so I'm glad to be here and to learn.
And she's our liaison from the Greenway Committee on the Parks Board. So she has a panelist seat on the commission. All right. Done with the introductions. Next, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? And if so, can I get somebody to have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? We'll second that. And all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And the minutes are approved as written. Thank you. And then we will move on to the public comments. Are there any members of the public that would like to come speak?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to in-person meetings. I do miss the Zoom a little bit. I had to scarf down my dinner really quick. My name is Mary Sal. I live at 1178 Haynes Street, and I am the Executive Director of Oaks and Spokes, which is an advocacy organization for increasing access for those to bike and walk here in Raleigh. A few comments. First of all, thank you everybody, to staff and to all of y'all for being here tonight. It's wonderful to see y'all plugging away at these issues. I saw recently that the budget came out for consideration for the city of Raleigh, and noticed over a 5-year time span, we have about $220 million allocated toward transportation objectives, with $200,000 a year of that allocated toward implementation of our bikeway plan. I feel that and Oaks and Spokes would feel that is insufficient to help us reach our goals for implementation of our bike system. There's also about $1 million a year allocated towards standalone projects for our sidewalk improvements, as I understand it. So I would come here tonight, first of all, to suggest that our budget reflects our values, and I think that additional funding needs to be allocated toward those objectives if we wish to see, under a realistic time scale, implementation of those goals for our bike plan and for our pedestrian plan. So for your consideration on that item. And then I have 2 events that I wanted to share with y'all. The first one is on April 7th. Oaks and Spokes is hosting a trail-oriented design event, which is helping us to think through how our greenway system is a wonderful asset for all ages and abilities infrastructure for biking and walking, but currently doesn't connect strategically to key destinations to allow for car-free trips. So there's going to be a wonderful panel discussion. We have some really great folks, including Mr. Nick Neptune, moderating. Potentially. So that's a wonderful addition. Thank you, Nick. Nick is the board chair of Oaks and Spokes. On April 24th, we also have our Advocacy Through Action event coming up, which we hold monthly. So that will be our April meeting. All are welcome. Is there a way to, for events, I don't know, is it best to just announce them in public comment, or I know sometimes you guys announce events at the end, so.
No, I think if you have events to announce, that you should go do it now.
That's all I got.
I've got a question for Ms. Sell.
Yes.
You said April 24th for the Advocacy Through Action meeting. Is that
Oh.
April or March 24th?
Thank you very much. That is March 24th. Yes, coming in hot. So thank you for keeping me straight.
Thank you, Ms. Sell. And I've got one more follow-up question. Could you repeat the budget figures you had mentioned earlier? I think you said it was $200,000.
Absolutely. So, information can be found on the city's website right now, but they're receiving public comment on our budget. Over a 5-year time scale, there's $220 million allocated total for our transportation budget, and of that, $200,000 a year is allocated toward bikeway implementation.
And $1 million for sidewalk improvements?
$1 million was a budget number I saw toward implementation of our sidewalks. There was also some complete streets funds, but overall would like to see amplification of those. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Callum, do you think it would be appropriate for the BPAC to have a presentation on the budget at its next meeting? I think that could go right to the full commission.
Yeah, I can look at pulling the appropriate staff for that.
I think that'd be, if the
Okay.
commission agrees. I don't know. The monitor here seems to be flickering in a distracting manner.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Somebody's going to have a seizure if that continues.
And that brings to the end our public comment section. Thank you. All right, and I believe this next item has been deferred. Is that correct? Till next month on the agenda. Next up on my agenda, I see. Oh, this is not the agenda. I'm sorry. I'm reading through the minutes. Presentations. Next up is presentations, and the presentations have not been printed in the agenda, right? We decided not to print out the presentations. So if you would like to follow along with the presentation material, you can look that up online. It's part of the printed, the online board documents, but otherwise the presentations will be up on the screens. That's what we wanted to save on the printing. And I don't know because they're not listed. So let me look them up real quick. Is that what, am I looking at the wrong list? Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry. I had the wrong document open. I'm used to doing this at home, y'all. Bear with me. Yes, so first up is Ms. Burris. I'm sorry. Yes,
this will be very quick.
Okay.
I know some faces, but not all faces, so I wanted to introduce myself. Fontaine Burris. I'm stepping in excitedly as the new Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Manager. I started with the city a little over 4 years ago as the bike share coordinator and oversaw the launch of the bike share program. I then switched about 2 years ago into a transportation planner role where I helped build the Complete Streets implementation program. And I am now here, so I'm excited to be back with BPAC, although there are many new faces since I was last at these meetings, and excited to be working with you guys. And I guess a little more, waiting for this to get fixed, a little bit about myself. I live in Southeast Raleigh with my husband, my 4.5-year-old, and my 3-month-old. We are a big biking and walking family. I'm originally from Boston, then lived in San Francisco, Portland, and then Denver. So a lot of great cities with biking and walking, and I'm excited to be bringing Raleigh into that list of cities as well. So excited to be here and excited to get to know all of you.
Thank you, and sorry about that garbled introduction. Next up in the presentations, we have Mr. John Anignost with the Capitol Boulevard North Plan update.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am John Anignost from the Planning and Development Department here at the City of Raleigh. Thank you for making more time for the Capitol North Corridor Plan this evening, especially on short notice. And so there were some questions that were brought to our attention by Councilmember Melton at the council meeting where this corridor plan was scheduled for public hearing. And just as a reminder, that public hearing is scheduled for April the 5th. But Councilmember Melton had noted that the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission had wanted to provide a little bit more input about this plan before it goes to the public hearing. And so we do have some information for you this evening about the bikeway options for the Capitol North Corridor Plan. And so the first thing that I want to do is go over a little bit of background about the corridor plan, which is that its core recommendation is to propose a major transportation project to convert Capitol Boulevard in the area between I-440 and I-540 to what's called a multi-way boulevard. And so that provides separate types of vehicle lanes for regional traffic and local traffic. And then that also would entail a new streetscape for Capitol Boulevard as part of that project, which would have to be performed with funding and basically led by North Carolina Department of Transportation. They are the owners of Capitol Boulevard, as it is US 1 and a portion of it is US 401. So this is basically what the proposal says, just from a mapping perspective, which is that most of the major cross streets, which are currently cross Capitol Boulevard at grade intersections, be rebuilt as grade separated interchanges. So basically a bridge would carry the cross street over Capitol Boulevard or carry Capitol Boulevard over the cross street. So those bridges do provide some bicycle and pedestrian benefits, and we are proposing that there be protected bicycle facilities crossing Capitol Boulevard on the cross streets as part of the construction of those interchanges. And this is an example of where this has been done in Virginia and how that can provide shorter crossing distances and larger waiting areas for pedestrians within the interchange. And we also have draft conceptual designs to provide to NCDOT for how to construct that portion of the roadway. So that's not really the question that's at hand today. The question that's at hand is on Capitol Boulevard itself, what is the facility that's provided for pedestrians and cyclists? And so the multi-way boulevard proposal, the cross-section that's included in the Capitol North Corridor Plan, is to provide a 12-foot sidewalk that is meant to serve both pedestrians and cyclists. And so the cross-section of Capitol Boulevard is proposed to look like this. And the overall amount of right-of-way that would be required would vary depending on how many vehicle lanes are provided, and that would be based on the anticipated traffic volume in different portions of the corridor, and that would vary between as few as 2 lanes in the regional section and even in some places potentially a single local lane to as many as 3 lanes in the regional section and 2 local lanes. But as you can see here, the outer portion of the cross section is what we call the streetscape in the city's zoning parlance. I'm sure you're all familiar with that term. And so the streetscape in the currently proposed concept would be a 12-foot sidewalk and then a 1-foot maintenance strip on the outside of that sidewalk, which basically allows for maintenance of utilities. And so again, that would be meant to be a facility for cyclists and pedestrians. And one thing to note is we would like for there to be tree planting areas placed in that. That is contingent on NCDOT approving that. They do have policies about where trees can be placed on highways, essentially like this one. But that would allow, even with tree planting areas, an 8-foot clear width for that sidewalk. So you have recently advised the City Council to authorize a text change, which has then been drafted and approved by the City Council to apply bikeway street sections to all the major streets and mixed-use streets in Raleigh. And so those provide separated bikeways on those streets where they are, where there's a city project or private development that is constructing new streetscape on those streets. And so this is a typical section. This is, the largest of those major streets. This is the 6-lane avenue, and it has the separated bikeway streetscape. And so that you can see the dimensions there include 2 grass areas around the separated bikeway, and then a 6-foot sidewalk and the 5-foot bicycle path. And that brings it to a total of 21.5 feet of width for the streetscape. Another potential option for Capitol Boulevard, this is another way that bicycle and pedestrian facilities could be provided in the Capitol Boulevard streetscape. And then a third option is similar to what is currently proposed on Atlantic Avenue and Old Wake Forest Road as part of those widening and improvement projects, which is a multi-use path that is intended to serve both cyclists and pedestrians simultaneously. And that is a 10-foot width of the multi-use path and does not include a sidewalk on the same side of the street. And so if that was something that was desired for Capitol Boulevard North, or Capitol North, excuse me, it would be proposed for both sides of the street. So on Atlantic Avenue, Old Wake Forest Road, Pool Road is also having one of these installed. It is a multi-use path on one side and a sidewalk on the other. And so on Capitol Boulevard, the proposal would be multi-use path on both sides to not require someone to cross the street to be able to cycle. And so that has again, 10-foot multi-use path, and then the grass strips on either side of the multi-use path can vary in width depending on how much right-of-way is available. It can be as small as 5 feet in combined additional width between both sides for a total streetscape area of 15 feet. And so here's a summary of those 3 options. So the current concept is, as you can see, the 13-foot streetscape width, and then a separated bikeway, 21.5 feet, and a multi-use path, 15 to 20 feet, depending on the width of the grass strips. And so, each of the proposals, each of the second and third proposals in this table would add additional right-of-way requirements, and that would have to be acquired as part of a NCDOT project to implement the Capitol North plan. And so that does come with costs and private property impacts, even, in addition to private property owners being compensated for property lost as a result of those types of projects. There can also be implications if the right-of-way acquisition is significant enough that it's not simply acquiring the additional land, but if it does impact the building, that could mean that NCDOT has to purchase the entire property from the property owner. We have not done any analysis of whether these changes would actually push any properties to that point. So that's the options that I have for you today to discuss, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I had a couple quick questions. You mentioned a 8.5 foot increase over the Capitol Boulevard North current plan and the separated bike path for the streetscape. And that's combining, when you're saying the streetscape, that's the portion just dedicated to the bicycle and the sidewalk path. Is that correct?
Yeah, those numbers are based on the area behind the back of the curb.
Behind the back of the curb. So everything that's not dedicated to either like automobile or BRT.
Right.
Correct. And is that just for one side, or is that for both sides of the corridor?
That would be for a single side.
For a
So,
single
the
side.
8.5
both sides
feet.
together,
right,
it would be like a 17-foot total increase. And you don't happen to know offhand what the average width that we're going to have to claim, what Capitol Boulevard North is currently slated to widen the corridor by with the current plan?
It varies by the portion of the corridor. The biggest impacts are going to be in the southern portion of the corridor, basically between Brentwood Road and Lewisburg Road. And in some portions of that area, the current right-of-way is as narrow as 150 feet. And the current concept would call for new right-of-way with width of between 190 to 210 feet in that area. So at least 20 feet from either side, or from each side of the current Capitol Boulevard in that area.
I got a quick question. John, did you say it was only the second and third plans that involve this major right-of-way acquisition, or do all of them involve that?
They would all entail significant new right-of-way, but again, more in the southern section. So particularly north of Spring Forest Road, there is a lot of additional right-of-way that's currently used for basically just a large street lawn. And really north of Old Wake Forest, it really opens up towards the interchange. So the impacts from right-of-way north of Lewisburg Road are much less. There will still be impacts, but the area south of Lewisburg Road is where there is a high likelihood in a lot of properties of there being a full acquisition of an entire property.
And please, I'll open it up to the commission for questions and comment. Commissioner Caruso.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question kind of stepping back a little bit as we're talking about what we would like to see on Capitol itself. I was reading through kind of the supporting docs, and I'm trying to understand if you could kind of provide some context on how the plan thinks about frontages and like where buildings in the future should be fronting. I think Commissioner Alley brought this point up before, and it seems like in some of the materials there's kind of conflicting proposals on buildings should be fronting effectively internally away from Capitol, and then some of the streetscape proposals show fronting along Capitol or fronting outwards towards Capitol. And I think that kind of has a major impact on what the streetscape should and will look like. I mean, I think we should still have a facility along Capitol, if for no other reason to kind of preserve the connectivity we have today, considering this is going to be a multi-decade kind of project, for better or for worse. And I mean, a lot of these streetscapes, they kind of, the ones that I'm seeing with the 10-foot sidewalk, are we envisioning like an urban frontage there? Like, is the intent to bring the buildings to the street edge, like with no setback? Because I mean, I don't know who's going to want to sit out there or access the buildings next to this freeway. So I'd like to understand kind of what the plan overall envisions as far as frontages and things like that.
So the general approach is that we envision in the long term, as the area redevelops, that buildings would be more oriented towards secondary streets that are parallel to Capitol Boulevard. And that's why we have amendments proposed to the street plan map to make many of the private driveways that pass through shopping centers into public streets, where they would have sidewalks on both sides, street trees, and potentially bicycle lanes on many of those secondary parallel streets. Because we do envision that, businesses are not going to be particularly interested in fronting directly on Capitol Boulevard. Now, having those local lanes taking the place or being somewhat separated from the regional traffic, we do think is going to help that condition a little bit, so it won't have as much of a highway feel, particularly because the intent is to have the design speed of the local lanes be 35 miles per hour and the design speed of the regional lanes be 45 miles per hour. And we're also anticipating that traffic will just, in practical terms, be traveling more slowly on the local lanes because that's also where access points to shopping centers and neighborhoods are going to be. And so there's going to be cars entering and exiting the local lanes. And so those turning movements are going to just be a natural, have a natural slowing effect for the traffic there. So we are hoping that that is going to make that more comfortable for pedestrians and cyclists. But in the long term, it is desirable to have those buildings. And we think the development community will also find that to be effective, to have the businesses face the secondary streets, and those can really be walkable neighborhoods and districts, and that the buildings themselves would actually form a little bit of a barrier to Capitol Boulevard. But there are some areas, again, particularly in the southern part of the corridor, where that transition is a little more difficult to envision. And both sides on the southern portion of the corridor, but particularly the east side between Trawick Road and Old Buffalo Road, the existing uses are pretty industrial. It's not very deep between Capitol Boulevard and the Star Mountain neighborhood. And so it's the ability for that area to redevelop in a way that's going to provide that secondary street could take some time, as opposed to, say, Mini City, Triangle Town Center. It's pretty easy to imagine those transitioning in the next 10 to 15 years with new development. So, but yes, and in terms of frontage, we actually have a policy in the plan that says we should look at writing a text amendment that would allow Capitol Boulevard to not be counted as a primary street for frontages in the future. So that because the primary street is what determines where the most, the frontage of a property where a building is going to have to be most closest to the street. And so we basically said it's not desirable to have that be the orientation of the building towards Capitol Boulevard in many locations.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So we were talking about over the next decade and a half, having everybody turn their businesses back, so the backside is facing Capitol Boulevard. I don't see any business going for that unless it's paid for by the government, I'll be very surprised.
So I think there are ways that can be effective. For instance, if a business still has signage that faces Capitol Boulevard, so it's apparent that the business is there. But, today a lot of people are driving and parking at these businesses, and the businesses are set back from Capitol Boulevard, 100, 150 feet. I don't think it's unreasonable to imagine that, again, if there's signage on a rear of a building that says there's a business here, you still have the visibility of those 70, 80,000 cars a day that are passing by, but that the actual active portion of the building is not facing Capitol Boulevard.
So we're talking about tear downs and rebuilds of a lot of businesses, put them out of business for?
Well, that decision
Go ahead.
would come from the private property owners themselves. I think the reality of the situation is that many of the shopping centers on Capitol Boulevard are reaching the end of their lifespan. Typically, a shopping center, when it gets to about 25, 30 years old, a lot of people start thinking about redevelopment anyway. There are shopping centers on Capitol Boulevard that date from the 1960s. So I think the way that Raleigh is growing, we should not be surprised. We should be prepared that the market is going to be pushing for that, and that the city should have a plan for how that can occur.
Okay, good luck.
Please.
I just have a real quick clarification question. I'm just not seeing how, if we go from 12-foot sidewalks on each side to a 10-foot multi-use path on each side, that the latter requires a greater right-of-way acquisition I'm sure that's somewhere, I'm just not quite
I think
seeing
that'd
how
be
we.
in addition to, not
That's in
instead of.
addition to?
I assume so.
So we're talking about a 12-foot sidewalk and a 10-foot multi-use path on both sides?
No, the multi-use path would replace the 12-foot sidewalk, and it would serve both cyclists and pedestrians.
I guess that's where I'm not quite connecting how we go from, or go to a larger right-of-way acquisition if we do the 10-foot multi-use path on each side of the road.
So we've just received a message that if we take a quick recess, I think they can fix this. And if that's okay with you, Mr. Anagnos, we'd take a quick recess, real 5 minutes, and give them a chance.
Sure.
Come back. Thank you, and everybody. Welcome to stretch your legs as it is. we're all good to take our own minutes. Okay, that's what, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No audio.
I was too optimistic with my all good. But we will thank B person for continuing with the minutes, and we'll continue this old fashioned. So I believe we had a question on the floor about the different sidewalk widths in the MUP.
Right, thank you. So the current plan, I think, has 12-foot sidewalks on both sides. And so one of the alternatives you presented today shows us 10-foot multi-use paths on each side of the road. And I'm just trying to understand how going to a 10-foot multi-use path from a 12-foot sidewalk would require greater right-of-way acquisition. If it seems like we're going smaller. And an add-on question is, what is the significance of calling something a multi-use path versus a sidewalk? Is it materials? Is it something else? Or if you could elaborate on that,
Sure.
thank you.
And I'm actually probably going to ask Paul to help me with a couple of those questions. The reason that the multi-use path adds to the right-of-way width is that in the typical design that we see in other streets in Raleigh, there is a planting area on either side of the multi-use path. So you would have the back of the curb, you would have a grass strip, then the multi-use path, then another grass strip, then the edge of the right-of-way where it returns to private maintenance. And so, it seems it's physically possible for you to not have those grass strips on either side of the multi-use path. I guess I don't know the details of whether the city's policies allow that style of design. But Paul, can you give us additional guidance on that?
Yeah, I'd have to look in. I say we take that back for action and look into that there to see if we can maybe make some recommendations based on your comment there with the 12-foot sidewalks and multi-purpose paths. So without having the presentation in front of me, and my computer has died here, I'd like to just take that back for action.
But in terms of the difference between a multi-use path and a sidewalk, there is typically a difference in the paving materials. So a multi-use path in many cases will be asphalt. A sidewalk would be concrete. The sidewalk also is more likely to be allowed to have tree planting areas and street furniture. The vertical elements of a streetscape could also have benches, garbage receptacles, other items like that. And those things would be placed in basically if they have a cross section of the sidewalk. Again, the tree planting area, it can be 4 feet wide, and then you have the 8-foot area that is a clear width, basically would not be obstructed to meet ADA requirements. And so within that 4-foot area where you have a tree every 40 feet, in between the trees you can place those other items, the benches, trash receptacles, etc.
And I'd just add the sidewalks typically have joints, the sidewalk joints in them, so it's a little bit more uncomfortable for the individual, in a wheelchair, bike, things of that nature. So typically your multi-purpose path would just be asphalt, smoother surface on that.
Are those expansion joints?
Typically expansion joints on the sidewalks.
Thank you.
So just so we're clear, if we make no recommendation changes or whatever, the current plan is the 12-foot sidewalk in the plan is the current recommendation, correct?
That is the current concept. What transportation staff have told me is that when this reaches NCDOT, if they accept this as a project and initiate the engineering design process, that my understanding is they would largely leave the streetscape to the city to make those decisions. And so I think the operant question here is whether or not a separated bikeway is included in the bike plan, because I think if there is a separated bikeway remaining in the bike plan on Capitol Boulevard, that does give NCDOT a little bit more formal direction that is the desired facility. If there is not a separated bikeway in the bike plan map in Raleigh's comprehensive plan, I think at the stage where it enters the NCDOT project, we can have additional community conversation and we can guide NCDOT. And at that point, we could decide at that time to make it a multi-use path as opposed to a sidewalk. So I think, the concept plan, the major benefit is that it communicates to NCDOT the city wants to have a facility of a particular quality. And there are policies at NCDOT that when there are adopted local plans that show things like that that NCDOT provides funding to construct them, and that's a relatively new policy. And so it is very important that we have something to show. And obviously the bike plan showing a separated bikeway does that, achieves that goal. And so I think it's a matter of how specific do we want to make that guidance.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess just as a comment, kind of offering what I'm thinking, like, I feel like there's a lot of conflicting goals in this project, and I really have quite a bit of heartburn about additional right-of-way, because this project is already going to be, in my opinion, extremely oversized, and additional 12, 20 feet, whatever it ends up being, is a lot of property to take. In a perfect world, in a perfect world, this project probably wouldn't happen, but I would like to have the separated facility, but I feel the 10-foot, at least my kind of reading between the lines, it seems like the major issue right now is getting the right-of-way dimensions. I think once we get closer to an actual specific capital project, we can kind of hammer out if this is going to be concrete sidewalk or an asphalt path, or what the specific thing looks like. But I think the right-of-way size itself is probably the bigger issue right now, and I think the 10-foot or 12-foot sidewalk, I'll use sidewalk with air quotes, could be asphalt path, provides a better facility that is there today and maintains the connectivity along the corridor itself. But I think we should expect that future redevelopment will be more, will be more inward facing, away from capital. So I don't know that we should be taking even more right of way on the Capitol Boulevard side when the future redevelopment will likely have more of the desire for the bike facilities on the inside, which will be much more comfortable and have access to the actual businesses and locations. Like I said, the 10-foot path will maintain connectivity. It's not the best facility, but it maintains connectivity, and like you can certainly ride a bike on the sidewalk. Like, it's not great, but it's better than having nothing. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. If anyone else has any thoughts.
Yeah, one more question. There are trees on the side of the project in your presentation. Are we planning on putting trees there so it blocks the view of the businesses?
So this conceptual drawing is from the Atlantic Avenue Improvement Project, and there is, I think, some existing trees in that area, and there are portions of Capitol Boulevard that have existing trees as well. The current concept is that it's desirable to have tree planting areas along the sidewalk on Capitol Boulevard. The typical city standard is a tree every 40 feet. There is a question about whether NCDOT would allow that. They have what are called clear zones, where the tree cannot be placed within a certain distance of the vehicle lane, because if a vehicle leaves the vehicle lane away, towards the outside of the roadway, it could strike a tree and cause a more dangerous crash than if there was not a tree there. And so that's a detail that's difficult for us to confirm at this point in the process. But the concept is a tree planting area, and we did in the concept at the very beginning of the presentation, it is actually on the outside of the sidewalk, whereas a typical streetscape in Raleigh puts the tree planting on the inside close to the curb. And that was basically trying to think through that, where is NCDOT going to allow us to do that? And then the other way we can address that is to have a guardrail along the curb, and that would allow for trees to be planted closer to the vehicle lane. But again, those details really don't get worked out at this stage of the process.
Questions? What kind of feedback are you looking from the commission tonight? Just general feedback? Do you need a vote from us, or are you looking to? The public hearing's on the 5th, but it's not like this is a construction project that's going out. This seems like it could be a continuing conversation. Is this something to collaborate with in the planning committee?
So I think at this point, what would be good for staff is to know if there is one of these options that you would like to be in the final version of the plan. And really, at this point in the process, the expectation is a little bit that you would advocate directly to the city council between now and the public hearing, or at the public hearing if you wanted to have a representative communicate your desires. What would be helpful for staff is if you have a sense of what that choice is right now, you can let us know and we can provide additional materials for the city council to help them respond to the information that you provide to them.
Well, I think we can commit to.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Mr. Callum, I guess. Since we're so far out from like specific projects, it's kind of hard to get into the details here. But like, if we say we want a separate, can we do something where we say we want a separated path, but the understanding is that it would be effectively the 12-foot quote unquote sidewalk that we're proposing now? I mean, it's kind of like a hybrid option, I guess, but like, because I think there's value in having something defined as a separated bikeway, but or a multi-use, mixed-use path, but I would like to not see that have such a right-of-way impact. I don't know how we could do that from a policy standpoint, but I think that that kind of.
So I think I have kind of the same kind of concern that I share the sensitivity to the right-of-way, and I think that for the most part, the better option is going to be to put a bicycle facility on the blocks that are off Capitol Boulevard. But my problem with that with taking the separated bike lane off of Capitol is that if you wanted to make a north-south movement, especially if you were south of like Lewisburg Road, none of the proposed new bike or streets or none of the bikeways proposed in the North Plan could take you close to the corridor as you traveled north and south. And at a couple points, you had to get pretty far removed from the corridor, about a mile in the most extreme, I think, so that if you wanted to go, that 1 mile north, you're obligated to go pretty far out of your way. And so it bothers me to take the designation that we need a safe bicycle corridor up and down Capitol Boulevard. And I'm not trying to take a bunch of right-of-way or say that it actually needs to be what we see in TC-3-21. Or I would love to see, we carve out new streets in the street plan as part of this process and say when you redevelop, you put a street here. If we could put some thought into maybe intentionally creating that parallel corridor, maybe with some pedestrian bridges, to make that a viable north-south route that could still access the BRT and the transit plan for that corridor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm basically thinking like if we could keep the separated bikeway designation, but without the additional planting space that's normally associated with that. So within the same kind of footprint.
If they're going to share with bicycles anyway, like maybe paint 1/3 of the concrete red or something.
Right. I mean, like, none of the proposals propose having no facility on Capitol. So like, there's going to be something there, which is good. I think it's more of like what that something looks like. So I mean, I feel like, again, it's not a premium facility. It's not something that I would like desire to ride my bike on, but the connectivity is there. So I don't know. Like, again, like there's so many moving pieces that are going to be 5-10 years away. It's hard to have anything concrete now. So I mean, I guess the question for staff would be like, what can we do as far as that, or if there's comments from here.
Did you have a comment?
I guess I feel kind of opposite about like the idea of planning for bikes and pedestrians to share space if we can take space specifically for cyclists, knowing that most of us on bikes are moving quite a bit faster than pedestrians. I do understand what you're saying, where if we have one surface that is paved that doesn't have to get broken up into different buffers and easements, that there might be still a nice, safe, attractive way to develop that. I personally feel like if the bike lane is the way to get the most direct path on a bike and to sort of cut away that space, I would hope that we would have, I like the idea of a separated bike path.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I've been thinking about it is that, like, I don't know how many people will be riding a bike a significant portion of the corridor. So, like, in practice, I don't know if it seems like the paths that maybe within the side streets might be enough of north-south traffic. Like, I don't know many people are gonna ride a bike from like Brentwood Road all the way up to Triangle Town Center. So, I mean, to Commissioner Otwell's point, like, you do have to jog over quite a bit on some of these proposed streets, but I don't know if, like, in practice, if people are going to really be doing that anyways. Like, I'm sure somebody would, but in this case, you have that path for those people, but, like, I don't know if that's going to be a significant.
So the Greyhound bus station is just south there. It's not in the project area, right?
Right, yeah.
And I've seen people walking across that overpass with no sidewalks, and I've seen people biking there, and, like, the fact that anybody's doing it means that there's a pretty desperate demand for those kind of movements. And if we provided a facility to do that, I bet you'd see a lot more people doing it.
Hey, Commissioner Otwell, if I could
Yes,
add.
please.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thanks.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I came late to the table, so I'm really not clear, on the drawings, what to choose from between the two. But my belief is that bicycle riding is an intricate part of the transit services, and we're obligated to provide safe infrastructure to that mode of transportation. It's not based on desperate needs, but it's an obligation of choice that we have to provide to the community. And I also know that e-bikes outsold EVs last year 2-1. So there is this growing need for that safe infrastructure. How you guys get around it, how you do it, I think I have complete confidence in you. If we agree that this infrastructure is just as important as motor vehicle infrastructure, and we're connecting the active transportation infrastructure to the transit stations. And then, because this is not where people are going to cycle because they want to, it's utilitarian environment, right? And so I just wanted to make that clear on what my intentions are, is to provide that safe passageway.
Just for people in my situation, pavers are horrible. So if we do it, an asphalt or tar path would be ideal, and I agree, it's fully utilitarian. People aren't necessarily going to go to Capitol Boulevard to have like a nice nature bike ride. They'll go to the greenways, but to have something direct is definitely necessary for the city.
So may I make a suggestion?
Please.
So the area plans or corridor plans like Capitol North have policies that are specific to the area being planned. And so, one way to approach this could be to have a policy in the plan that says during NCDOT projects that implement the concept that a certain width of the streetscape be designed to be appropriate for bicycles and wheeled vehicles through paving, marking. I think we could have a policy that basically gives NCDOT kind of a playbook that's not exactly the separated bikeway, but says, here's what we are trying to achieve with this.
I'm definitely open to that idea.
Yeah, and I'd like to include in the language that it needs to be separated with a visible divider. This is not something that a shared space that's divided by a simple old style of paint that we see going up on Route 70. We need to have this to be completely on its own.
Above the curb?
Above the curve. Yeah.
Right, it would be outside of a vehicle lane. I think it would be something like, where you see the sidewalk on the outside of this, that in the clear section of that sidewalk, there could be 5 feet of that clear width that is paved in asphalt and has markings that indicate, this is more of a higher speed, or, this is kind of a freer flowing section of the sidewalk. And I don't know if Paul, if there's any issues with that style. I mean, is that something that's just, from a technical perspective, just impossible? I don't want to throw out ideas that can't be implemented.
I've seen that in other cities and use those kind of facilities, and I'm more comfortable on a bike than the average person, but I thought it was a pretty solid compromise. And above the curb, I felt pretty comfortable. I don't know how the people I rode past felt. But I felt good.
How wide are our current sidewalks in the downtown area? Or even over there, what's the current sidewalk width over there?
So the standard minimum for Raleigh is 6 feet. Downtown, a lot of them are 14 feet if you include the tree planting area. And then the separated bikeway is a 6-foot sidewalk with a 5-foot bicycle path for most of those.
I think some of the old ones we see downtown, like the narrowest, are around 4 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, feels like that.
The old ones, yeah.
Some spots where we're at 3, almost pushing 3 at least. But yeah. So I mean, essentially, what I'm getting at is the sidewalks here are wide enough for people to pass each other on either side. I don't think we need to go much larger than 4.5 feet, which would leave 7.5, 8 feet for bicycles.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the reason I said 5 feet is, I guess, in a lot of cases, the tree planting area, since it's not clear, can be, it's not always considered part of the transportation section of the sidewalk. It's more of an amenity part of the sidewalk. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, that level of detail would probably come down to the NCDOT project. So, I mean, but that's, I think that would be a question for whether to include a minimum width of that distinctive area in the policy, or just say that there should be. I mean, that's the nuance of writing policy like that.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of having a specific policy in the comp plan about the intent to have a bike-friendly facility along Capitol itself. I mean, I'm not sure how everyone else feels, but I feel like if we, I think a lot of the details that we're kind of talking about can and will be addressed during an actual capital project, an actual construction project. Like, once that comes up, then we can get into the nitty gritty of, what goes where and all of that. I think I personally would feel comfortable with the 12-foot allotment size, along with the specific, comp plan policy that states, well, staff can work on specific language, but basically that prescribes that we would like this to be a bike-friendly facility, with some type of potential vertical delineation between the pedestrian side and the bicycle side. But again, like I feel like a lot of these details will have to be figured out and kind of litigated at the actual construction phase, not at the. I feel like this is too high level of a policy to get into that nitty gritty.
I think the commission is open to your idea. If you would like a vote on that, I would be happy to bring one up. I think we could trust staff to craft the best language.
Right.
Have a lot more experience at it than most of us do. We'd be
Well,
happy to
I guess I would just
consult.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with making a motion. I would just before I do that, I'd like to open it up for if anyone would like to see specific things in the policy. Like, is there any things that someone believes that we need to have like hit on, or?
I think that's a great idea.
Service. I mean, that's a.
I'm sorry.
There's having a smooth surface without cracks.
Okay.
For the pavers to adjust and create areas where I can't tell what's going on, but are we filling them in with concrete or grinding them down to make it a less hard transition from paver to paver? But
yeah, from what we heard last month from staff, it seems like that's kind of in flux right now, because they were talking about the new bike paths that are going to be part of the normal streetscapes will be like a black concrete. Okay. So I don't know if it's exactly figured out.
They said the expansion joints were like a lot smaller.
Yeah, like the joints in the concrete are going to be relatively smooth. So I think that specific is kind of still being worked out. But yeah, I agree that it should either be asphalt or some type of smooth pavement.
Well, Mr. Anagnost, if you think that there's a particular policy that would be effective and address the issues that were being expressed here, I think I would encourage you to pursue that. And I would also, if there's other concerns that the commission has, that we could communicate those and perhaps address those as separate issues in the comp plan. For instance, I'd love to see an intention to create a parallel bike path that would bridge those big gaps in some sort of conceptual vision, and not binding us to any capital improvements. I think other commissioners had concerns about the reduction in intersections up and down the corridor that this project will entail. And while safety will go up, a large part of that will come to reduced access, where people have to go farther out of their way to cross the street. And I don't know if there's a way that we can get around that with some sort of vision or policy that creates more pedestrian bridges or a land bridge in the future, if we can get DOT on board.
So we do have 2 pedestrian bridges proposed in the Capital North Plan. One at Starmount, which is the Mayflower is the corresponding street on the west side, and a second one at Oak Forest, because both of those intersections would not be full movement across Capitol Boulevard. So the intersection bridge would not provide that pedestrian service. So, and then we also have a policy that says redevelopment of Triangle Town Center should, if there's rezoning, there should be consideration that land be set aside or dedicated for the base of another pedestrian bridge.
I think we're happy to approve that intention. Do you want to vote from us, or are you good with the comments you got here, and we'll continue to communicate with planning staff and city council members?
Yeah, and I can draft up some policy language to the effect of what we've been discussing and share it with transportation staff to see if they're comfortable with it, and probably get that to y'all by the end of this week, just so you can be able to see it before the public hearing, and have something to point to if you did want to address city council directly.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on the presentations, we have our new bicycle pedestrian bicycle pedestrian program manager and the NCDOT resurfacing list.
And while I like my bikes electric, I like my presentations acoustic. So you have a in the back of your agenda package, you have a little cross-section, and this will be pretty quick. I know previously you guys were, these last couple months, you guys were working on looking at some of the city's resurfacing projects. One project that was not on that list was for Avent Ferry. That is being resurfaced by NCDOT. We had this upcoming year. We have existing bike lanes out there right now, but we are going back and asking NCDOT to improve those current bike lanes. So what you have is the top is the existing typical. We have a 2-foot gutter pan with a 5-foot bike lane, 14-foot travel lanes with a 12-foot center lane. We are asking NCDOT to resurface and with a 2-foot gutter pan and a 6-foot bike lane, so adding a little more space there, a 3.5-foot buffer, and reducing those travel lanes down to 10 feet with a 11-foot center turn lane. So while we're not adding flex posts at this time, it's not part of the options with resurfacing. This does give some separation. Hopefully the smaller lanes will help slow traffic, and we do have the option of having a conversation with NCDOT about going back after the resurfacing to add some flexible delineators there. So we're hoping this will improve the bike lanes in that area, and it will be from those changes will be made from Gorman to Athens Drive. On top of that, there is a complete streets project happening at Athens Drive. So once NCDOT resurfaces, the city will be working on realigning Athens Drive to make it to more T intersection and adding making some adjustments to the signals there and adding some pedestrian crossings to improve that intersection for pedestrians. We don't quite have a clear timeline. NCDOT has given us a large timeline for when this resurfacing can happen, anywhere from this summer to later this winter. And the intersection realignment will be following that resurfacing. So we will keep you guys updated as that project moves along. But just wanted you guys to be aware that this is also happening in addition to the city's resurfacing projects.
I'd like to just say I'm really excited by the redrawing. This is really, I can feel the comfort level increased with that 3.5-foot buffer, or 3'5". I wanted to ask, instead of the vertical flexi posts that we've been using, has the city ever considered the concrete low curbs that I've been seeing being posted and used in other cities? They're like freestand. You mount them in. I can't describe them. They're made out of concrete. They're about 7 feet.
On Gorman Street at the.
Yeah, they're like parking blocks. Yeah. Has the city considered that instead of the?
Brian or Commissioner Thomas pointed out, I do believe we have them on Gorman Street. We have not talked about them here. This is an NCDOT owned street, so I'm not sure if they would allow us to put it in. Even asking for flex posts is going to be a conversation because we have not installed many flexible delineators on an NCDOT street.
Okay.
So we will see how that conversation goes. I know there has been talk about and requests from the community about the city looking into that. I'm not sure Avent Ferry is going to be the location where we try it for the first time.
Okay.
Because of NCDOT's
right
stance on them. But I do think it's something that the city can look into and maybe to pilot on a city-owned
street. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Gallenbeck, how do you like those little plastic lumpy things like they have on, have you seen those on Wake Forest?
Oh, yeah.
The
little
armadillos?
Armadillos, is that what those are called?
I'm a real fan of them. I think that they redirect a vehicle's tire in the direction that away from the
It's,
thing.
you
So
know,
I'm very comfortable with that.
I don't
And
think they'd have as
I
many
just think the
water
flexi
concerns.
posts have proven that they really, they're good visually, but they don't do anything to redirect the vehicle out back into the vehicle lane. They still enable that car to continue going in that one direction, which is
Another
part that's
option that
scary.
I've seen implemented is adding rumble strips in the buffer, kind of like you have on the side of a road or highway to discourage drivers from. It doesn't push them back, but it makes it really uncomfortable for the driver to have their tires in the buffer.
It wakes them up.
Yes.
I know that part. But yeah, so I am a fan.
Just a question about, do we have any confidence level on whether or not NCDOT is going to let us go from 14 feet to 10 feet in the travel lanes? 'Cause I've driven this section quite a bit, and it feels very wide right now. So what you've drawn here seems very reasonable to me, but I'm just concerned that they're not going to allow that much of a decrease in travel lane.
So they have actually reviewed this already and our preliminary marking plans, and they are in full support of this.
Awesome. Okay.
They originally we had proposed 4-foot buffers and a 10-foot travel lane. That is the only thing that they requested to change. We have a follow-up meeting that was back in November that we met with them to talk about the city's desire. We have a meeting with them on Wednesday to review the final plans, but they haven't given us any indication that they are not on board with this.
All right, that's great to hear. And this is a fairly short section of roadway, so if they're in a good mood, maybe we want to pitch some of these vertical delineation ideas while they're thinking about this. So something to try.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things on this to Commissioner Gellenbeck and Commissioner Tom. So I think this is just an example of us building the relationships with NCDOT. I think they've come a long ways, and so we're actually seeing, I was on a meeting today talking about some work we're doing in downtown, and they're very open to looking at a lot of these reduced travel lanes and things of that nature. So I would just say this is an example of, hey, this is what we had out on Avon Ferry at the top, and just kind of, in my eyes, kind of strengthening our bike facilities here. So I think these are just things that we'll continue to chip away. But to your comment, Commissioner Gellenbeck, so Will Shoemaker in our traffic calming is looking at some different products. Some of them are raised curb. The problem that we're just seeing right now is the cost. It's just so expensive. But, you know, I'm all about doing pilots. So I think if we can maybe find a project that, isn't going to kill the bank, it may be something we would want to test out. So again, we've actually got some products upstairs that he's got in the floor that they have sent us so we can kind of look at. So again, kind of raised curb, and then what you can do is put vertical delineators on top of the raised curb there to give you both that deflection and the vertical appearance of something there. So the products are coming out. It's just the cost is just so expensive right now. So it's just kind of what we're seeing.
Well, Go ahead, please. No.
I'm changing the topic a little bit.
Okay,
so
well, I would just say that Commissioner Alley is not here, but she would vociferously endorse anything that we could get some in-road capture for pedestrian space or bicycle space, and if we could find the proper materials and then perhaps codify something about how we're doing that, I'm gonna cheer on for her.
I just want to point out too that this is an awesome example of where corridor plans become really important in helping with implementation. This cross section was identified in the Avon Ferry corridor plan, which also made the conversation with NCDOT a lot easier about implementation. So just wanted to point that out and show how it can come full circle, especially following the presentation on capital.
That leads in wonderfully to my next question, which was if you had any idea if there were any capital projects on the horizon associated with the Avon Ferry corridor plan.
The Athens Drive alignment is the one that we're moving forward. There's some smaller smaller things from that plan being implemented through the Complete Streets program. In addition to this, in the Athens Athens realignment, NCDOT is putting in, I believe, 2 crossings with hawk signals at locations that were identified in the corridor plan, and further south on Avent Ferry, there is an additional crossing that the Complete Streets program is putting in. So it's not implementing the entire plan, but it is pulling some smaller pieces out of it and trying to get them on the ground.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question about Athens Drive, just to, I guess, confirm. So the plan is to basically take Athens Drive, like, behind that little convenience store there and make it a T intersection?
It
is
may
what we're
not
talking
be
about?
a complete T, and we haven't gotten started on the exact drawings yet,
Okay.
but we're probably not going to get it 90 degrees.
Okay.
But we're going to try to get it a little
I see.
closer using existing right-of-way, just to make for better pedestrian crossings and.
Okay. Yeah, it's. I mean, even driving, like, if you have to turn back, it's
Yeah.
pretty gnarly.
So
And
Commissioner Cruz, I just want to clarify, so he's talking at the other end
yeah, at Jones Franklin.
of Jones Franklin, and we're going to specifically be talking about Gorman and, Avent and Athens Drive on the other end.
That one's like a
so just
huge
wanna make
slip lane, basically.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about at Avon Ferry?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, so we're just gonna square that off a little bit. I gotcha. And while we're in this area on Athens Drive, they're rebuilding that bridge as part of the Beltline project, right? Do you happen to know, like, what the facilities are gonna look like? Is there anything decent, or is it just rebuilding what's there?
I do not.
Okay.
I was going to say, I do not know. I know that's, we're actually dealing with some of the community over there now because the bridge is shut down, so we've got a lot of kind of cut-through
Right.
traffic that we're dealing with. But I do not know the specifics of the bridge cross-section on that.
So I was talking with our former bicycle pedestrian program manager about the utility of the state designated bicycle routes, because right now there's been a call out that the state is looking for input for what the state bicycle routes were, and I was kind of dismissive of a state bicycle route because they didn't seem to do much, but he said that this is actually one of the areas where they have the most impact is if it's on a designated, if a bridge replacement is on a designated route, then the state will sometimes provide better facilities for that. So everybody go do the survey.
I just want to clarify the location. I was trying to use my memory for the Avant Ferry and Athens, and then I was like, oh yeah, Avant Ferry intersects with Western Boulevard. Is that correct? And I really appreciate the city putting effort into increasing the comfort level and safety for students. If I understand, there's a large residential in that section of town, and for them to be able to have an affordable transportation during these years where they're spending a lot of money for education really makes my heart grow 3 times its size. So thank you so much for bringing that into your focus and doing that for them.
Right. After that rambling follow-up to your presentation, is there anything else from the staff from the presentations?
No action needed.
That will bring us into the chair's report, and I think I have a pretty short report. Vice Chair and I have been having continuing discussions with staff about the West Street bicycle lane extension, and we hope to see some updates in the design for that soon. We had a meeting about the Russ Bus Appearance Commission meeting where the bike lanes were removed from the design as per a variation request, and I think we were going to begin a discussion with one of our committees about the city's, how the Appearance Commission works and how that interacts with our desire for bike lanes, pedestrian facilities, and if there's some way that we can engage some of those folks in an ongoing discussion. And also, I would like to mention that anybody that drove here today to please see Ms. Godwin for a parking validation if you paid to park in the deck, or if you didn't pay, right? Yes, and if you didn't pay, they will make you pay on the way out, but not if you have a parking validation. And I believe that's it for my chair's report. And we'll turn it over to committee reports, and I'll start with the vice chair and the outreach committee.
Thank you. The outreach subcommittee met via virtual call on March 9th, and we actually had Ms. Fontaine Burris join us on that call to discuss the resurfacing along Whitaker Mill, and we also discussed upcoming Bike Month activities. So a good meeting for the outreach subcommittee.
And Mr. Tong, Commissioner Tong.
We didn't have a meeting last month, but we have our monthly meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. If anybody's interested in attending, we will be discussing crosswalk markings, policy, and related items at that meeting.
Commissioner Caruso, policy.
Thank you. The policy committee met this month, and we covered 2 items. One was basically a follow-up on our previous discussions about the tiered site plan review process and a few gaps we found in the process. We have sent a letter to our council liaison, Councilor Melton. The letter is attached in the agenda items, and we have, basically passed our recommendations to him and expect a request from him for a staff report on reviewing and modifying some pieces of the site plan review process to make them more compatible with bike and ped facilities. And we also started a look at the process and policies around signalized intersections. So this month we kind of started to make sure we capture all of the different topic areas that the committee members want to address and look into. And we expect to have a meeting, or we expect during our meeting next month to meet with the appropriate staff members to talk about those items and move that forward. As of right now, we're mainly thinking in kind of 2 directions. One being adding pedestrian signals to existing signalized intersections. We kind of unfortunately there's been progress on that, but we still have quite a number of intersections that have traffic signals but do not have any type of pedestrian signal. So it's kind of, traffic will stop, but there's no clear way to figure out when you can go, and you kind of have to frogger yourself away across the intersection at the right time. So we would like to bring as many of those intersections up to kind of a full suite of treatments. And then kind of a longer term process or project is adding signalization to a number of intersections. Mainly outside of kind of our downtown core and some more urbanized areas. We have a lot of sections on our primary arterials where there are extremely long gaps between signalized intersections that make it very difficult to cross a street. If there's no signalized area, it's very hard to cross a 5 or 6 lane road safely or at all. So we're also going to be looking at which intersections should be good candidates to have traffic signals added to those intersections to control traffic. And then whenever the signals are added, then that would also include adding pedestrian signals, crosswalks, and kind of the whole suite of treatments that we add to those new projects. So That's it for policy committee for now.
All right, thank you very much. And I'd like to say a special thank you to the policy committee. I think this is really good work on the tiered plans, and I think that there's a chance we can make a difference here. All right, I think that does it for the committee reports. And next up, I think we have staff reports. Are there any reports from staff today?
We have a few. I'll start us off here. I have a few exciting updates for the commission. First, that the Longleaf Bike Share Station is now open. It officially opened this morning, so go check out a bike and take a ride and let me know how it is. As many of you have probably seen already, another bike share update. We are currently undergoing a branding change in the system. So Citric Cycle will transition to become Cardinal Bike Share. So at this time, all of the stations have been changed over. And then this week, the bikes themselves will begin to change as well. I've included a memo in your packet that kind of details a lot of the questions that you might have about this, and also a mock-up of what the new branding will look like. And then a quick update as a follow-up from last month from Chair Otwell. He posed a question around bike share expansion and kind of where we're at with that from the city. So our focus for a little while here has been on the rebranding, and so expansion has kind of taken the back burner a little bit, but we did just have an internal meeting to start some of the preliminary plans for a new station at the intersection of Glasscock Street and Brookside Drive. So we are in motion on an additional new station, and that's my report. Thank you. A few things for me as well. Just to make you guys aware, NCDOT is doing some temporary detours along the Reedy Creek Trail coming up. They are closing the greenway just north of Wade Ave at the entrance to Meredith College on Hillsborough Street. And they're going to begin to relocate the trail to its new alignment and build retaining walls. The detour will trying to follow the detour, our users will be detoured to the House Creek Greenway trail across Wade Ave at Ridge Road and following the multi-use path to the bike lanes on Faircloth. During the detour is expected to be in place for about 2 months, but they have not indicated a clear start date of when that detour will begin, but it is coming up, so wanted to make you guys aware of that. A follow-up about Lewisburg and New Hope Road for Commissioner Caruso. You had a question about the sidewalks. It sounds like the NCDOT is likely to be restriping those sidewalks in the spring. They're currently under a thermal moratorium because of the weather. Once it gets warmer, then the weather improves, they'll be able to put in those new crosswalks. I don't have an exact timing on that,
That's
though.
fine, thank you.
And then lastly, resurfacing plans are done and are being posted to the city website for anyone that would like to see them. B, did you want to share anything about Bike Month?
So Bike Month will be in May. We have a Bike Bonanza on the first Friday in conjunction with First Friday at Raleigh Union Station. So come join us, as well as Bike to Work Day will be May 20th. And then we have some other active adult and greenway rides that we'd love to have you. The information will be on the website within the next week or so. And if you want to help or if you want to participate, we'll send you out some information about how you can do that if you want to.
Wonderful, thank you. That's the Brookside station that's our northernmost extrusion of the system yet, or is it?
The station at Gateway Plaza.
Okay.
And then the
Okay.
NCMA Museum station also is northwest.
Oh, the museum. I forgot about the museum. that's
I
pretty exciting.
just had a quick question to follow up on the resurfacing. I was just curious, just to follow up, because we had such a long discussion. What ended up happening with Whitaker Mill? What ended up being the final design?
We went with the hybrid model, so we're doing buffered bike lanes with no center turn lane, and then reducing, tapering down the buffer and putting in a turn pocket when needed.
Okay, thank you.
Was this the approach we affectionately called the Caruso approach?
I mean, I wasn't going to say anything, but yes, that is the proposal.
Confirm.
Yes, thank you.
The Caruso approach.
Thank you,
is
Commissioner Neptune.
What we went with on Whitaker Mill.
All right. As a surprise addition to the agenda, I would like to give Christina Jones a chance to give a report on what the Parks Board has been up to, if you have anything.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Jones, and I'm the liaison from the Parks Board, specifically the Greenway Committee. We, as the Greenway Committee, have not met since the passage of the Greenway Master Plan. That was the last thing on our work plan, so we haven't met since then. But as a park board, or as the Parks Board as a whole, I also chair the Parks Committee, and we have an initiative that we want to introduce new residents and residents who really weren't familiar with our park system to Raleigh. And so we're calling it our Welcome to Raleigh series, and we're going to be highlighting a community center or park in each district. So we have A, B, C, D, E, and each one we're partnering with different groups. So in April, we'll be partnering with the Raleigh Youth Council over at Abbott's Creek for their Easter egg hunt. In May, we're going to be partnering with you guys, and we're going to be, hopefully, we're finalizing that. It kind of changed just today. But hopefully that'll be at the Honeycutt Park over in District A, so we can have this really great event. The city wants to teach people how to put air in their tire, how to change it, how to do bicycle maintenance, and then end that with a bike ride. And I think we were talking about doing a short back and forth, like 30-minute bike ride, and then some other users can sign up and register to do a longer bike ride. We'll have, and I just learned now, it's not going to be Citrix bikes, but the bike share program, whatever that is, I missed the name of that. They'll be there just to show them what the city offers. And so I really think that's going to be exciting. We'll be at Chavis for the Juneteenth celebration in June, and then we'll take the hottest months of the year off, and then we'll come back in September and partner with Method for their Method Days. It might be August because it's usually the end of August, and then we'll go to Lake Lynn for District E in October, again partnering with Raleigh Youth Council and doing like a Halloween, I don't know, wherever COVID puts us. I don't know if we'll have a dance or a trunk or treat or something like that. So please join us in trying to get the city to do like a list of all of the events so people know and can come. So fingers crossed we can get some board initiatives on the communications plan. But other than that, the Parks Board, we are trudging along. We're working on our work plans for next year at the moment, and trying to put together a retreat. So I'll keep you guys updated, but thank you so much.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you know the current status of the Greenway Master Plan updated? Didn't council put off passage?
They did. I'm not sure why. It hasn't come back to us, so I don't have the answers to that, but they did put off passage of it, so it hasn't been fully implemented yet.
Okay.
My understanding was there were some concerns from Meredith College about the access that was suggested to be studied, and that is the reason that it's been put off.
Great.
I
Thank you so
believe
much.
From watching the council video, that's the impression I got as well. And I was going to ask if we could join in a discussion about what that solution looks like, because I get that they need secure that campus after dark. And right now the bike path or the Greenway, don't claim it just for myself, but the Greenway is behind all their security, so they can't really effectively close that at night. And they propose, I believe Meredith has proposed that a detour, the same detour that is currently going on with the closure for construction, be the permanent solution for night access if the House Creek Greenway Trail is ever opened up for nighttime use as per the current Greenway update.
Right.
So I think I would love to explore options, maybe creating a separated facility on the Meredith side, but I see that there's some big power lines there. Now I'm looking at the street view that might, the power company doesn't like you to dig up their poles. But I don't think that using the bike lane on Faircloth is an adequate nighttime solution long-term. So I would love to continue a discussion with perhaps the Parks Board and the
Definitely. And what I'll
park
do
staff.
is, since, like I said, we have not met, so I will reach out to Beverly Clark, who is our chair, and ask to facilitate that conversation, seeing if we can get BPAC and Meredith and the Greenway Committee, hopefully, in April. Fingers crossed if that's feasible, but maybe we can set a timeline.
Wonderful.
For sure.
I think Commissioner Russo.
Before he left, Paul Black was mentioning that he was working on some type of capital project on Faircloth and was waiting for some type of approval. I don't remember what the particulars of it were, but does anyone from staff know like what that's gonna like? Is there a separated path as part of that? I mean, there was something. I think maybe it was just a sidewalk. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I remember him talking about that too, but I don't.
It was some type because like they needed additional approvals and engineering or something like that because there was extra
Changing hardscape or something. Yeah.
So they were definitely doing something beyond just like resurfacing it. So maybe there'll be some type of facility in the near future. So
that'd be great.
I didn't know if anyone knew.
I would just add, Chairman Alwett, so I think there was a update on the Greenway Master Plan in Friday's manager's report, which is a public report. I think Parks and Recs and Cultural Resource staff is having a meeting with Meredith staff, I think at the end of this month. But I just wanted to let the commission know that that is a public report that you can look at from last Friday. I think it's an update based on where they are with that in their meeting with Meredith.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. And that brings us to general board comments. And I see a couple, but Commissioner Thomas got his hand up first. Commissioner Thomas got his hand up first.
I just want to ask real quick, Ms. Godwin, is the name change for the bike share system, is that a permanent change? Is that a new sponsor? Is it just called Cardinal? Is there an actual sponsor behind it, or?
There is no sponsor behind it. It's a generic name that was selected by our vendor in partnership with us. So there is room for sponsorship.
Okay. Are there going to be financial implications for the city in terms of operating the system in the interim period? Are we covered there? Or?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Bewegan, our bike share operator, handles all cost of maintenance and operations of the system.
All right, great, thank you.
And I'll just add, one of the thoughts behind having something that's not Raleigh specific but applies to Raleigh is so that if we choose to expand the system with some of our neighboring towns, that it is a name that they would also embrace. Carrie is looking into doing a pilot with bike share. And
so that would mean that if we hopped on the train to go to Cary, we could use our bike share membership here in Raleigh, and it would open access to their bikes?
Theoretically.
I like that theory.
Love
that theory.
But
yeah, right.
We wanted to keep the option open for neighboring communities to partner with us should they choose. And so we wanted a name that was not Raleigh specific to encourage that.
Well, if I may commend that thinking, number one. Number two, I'd like to acknowledge and commend the work done to open the bike share station at Longleaf Hotel. I know I've asked about that personally a number of times, so it's great to have that news. And in fact, it's quite timely news for those that may be interested. This Saturday, from what I understand, this Saturday, the 26th of this month, March, in 2022, from 4 to 8 o'clock, they're hosting a special event. There's music, You've got barbecue, you've got seafood, some great beverages in order. The weather's apparently going to be in the 60s, bright and sunny skies. Just a great opportunity for those who might be interested. I think it's an album release party. I don't know. I believe, Danger Club Records, Good Times Assurance Company is responsible for presenting this situation. And for those who are interested, this is a great opportunity to pick up a Cardinal bike, ride it on down to Longleaf this Saturday, 4 to 8 o'clock, special event. I'm just saying, what a way to celebrate the opening of this new station.
Thank you for the support, Commissioner Neptune.
And now it's
Are
on
you
the
getting
public
there?
record. All right. I think we've already started the announcements portion of the upcoming events.
Commissioner,
unless there's
well,
more comments, board comments. Yes, please.
I would like to
Yeah,
share
of
an
course.
experience. Thank you, of course. I wanted to share what I experienced 2 weeks ago when I was cycling in downtown using the Hillsborough Street bike lane. And against my better judgment, I turned, both intellectually and instinctively, I turned onto Hillsborough bike lane to give it a test. I find that bike lanes that are in door zones to be very dangerous by design. And within 2 blocks and almost 3 seconds away, I was almost doored by a person who was a driver who was leaving their car. I managed to whistle loud enough. I don't cycle quickly. So the crash didn't occur. But as she pulled in her door and I passed it, just to my left was a vehicle driver. So if I had been doored when I'm literally 3 seconds away, my injuries could have resulted in life-changing conditions. And then a couple days from that, I had heard about the news from Chapel Hill of a bike rider who was cycling on Franklin Street, and he got injured when a driver opened their car door on him, and he died from his injuries. And so I really just wanted to share this personal experience to reiterate that bike lanes in door zones is very dangerous, and it won't induce ridership because of the fear of injury and death from it. So thank you, Mr. Otwell.
Of course. I'm glad you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just follow on that? I work in Nelson Hall, which is right on Hillsborough Street, and I think you're absolutely right, Ms. Gellenbeck, that it's not going to induce ridership if our bike lanes are in the door zone like that. And yet, I see people riding there all the time, every day. I ride there myself. And so it's frustrating to see our community of users have to deal with that situation when we're putting in kind of just bike lanes along with resurfacing projects, and I don't fault anybody for that, and I know that these things come from different pots of money, but I really would like us to address the bike lanes on Hillsborough Street where people are already using them, and I've asked about having the markings updated numerous times here at BPAC meetings, so it's just frustrating, and I feel for you. I've been there, and I know other people who've been doored there, and it's choking me up a little bit, frankly. But I would like the city to really address that. We need to take care of our community of riders who already exist, or we're not going to have anybody else join the club. So thanks.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Caruso.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I know that Commissioner Otwell and I have talked about this kind of a little bit, and I think that that's something that we want to look at in the policy committee as far as I don't know that in practice we're really building many, if any, new bike lanes that are in the door zone. I think we tend to either buffer them or not put a bike lane there. Most of them tend to be kind of historical at this point, but I think that that's something that we want to look at in the poll. Unfortunately, the docket is quite long, so there's a number of items, but I think that that's something that I think as BPAC we should probably have more specific guidance on having kind of firm policy on painted infrastructure. Like I said, most of it is historical at this point, and the only real painted infrastructure is generally as part of resurfacing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that I think we need to look at and have kind of clear policy direction on going forward.
And I'll just add I think Hillsborough Street is a good example where the best practices outpace the city. So what was built, by the time Hillsborough Street was built, the best practices had changed. But I'm really excited. Right up the road from Hillsborough Street is going to be our Oberlin Streetscape project, which has parking protected bike facilities. And I do want to point out that is a good example of where the city has gone and where we are going with better bike facilities that offer better protection than that.
I'm very excited to see the Oberlin project go. Do we, there's another phase coming to Hillsborough Street eventually, isn't there? Isn't there more planned? Long term.
Yeah.
So I think some of the original plan is to maybe add some more parking along where there's currently bike lanes. Is that correct? I think that'd be correct, up near the northern end.
I think that is correct.
So it may be something that planning or policy might want to take a look at. If it's long term, maybe we can mitigate that a little bit.
Which section are you talking about? On like the west end out near Gorman?
It's
Or
been a
where?
while since I looked at it, but I think on the Hillsborough Street, up near the north end, near
Near Meredith?
not that far. It's where they would just put in the roundabouts. There's currently it's currently a bike lane and a 2-lane road and a sidewalk, big brick sidewalk, and they're going to carve out some more parking eventually up and down.
I see.
I believe it's been years since I've looked at that plan, but I believe there's a plan to install more parking in some of
I see.
that central corridor.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any more comments from the commission? Well, it's great to have everybody back, and I like doing this in person. Thank you for coming down. We can move into the upcoming events, and the first thing we have is a discussion about the next meeting, and I believe the current meeting time, the 18th, is that what we have listed? Coming up next, upcoming events.
Are you confirming our next BPAC?
Confirming our next BPAC meeting, I'm sorry. I skipped upcoming events, but let's go ahead and talk about it. I think that's Easter Monday. I think most people are going to have that off, potentially. Is that correct?
It's also tax day, apparently.
Yes, on the 18th.
Yes.
So is there a will to change that date? Do we want to postpone the meeting, not have it for the month? I think staff will probably have the day off.
I think they have Friday off.
Your Monday?
They have Good
Yeah.
Friday.
They have Good Friday off? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
Monday's
Friday.
not
Monday's not
normally
off? Okay.
I don't think so.
All right, well, I'm happy having it on Monday. I don't need to change it. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, all right. And sorry about that, going out of order. Are there any more events that anybody would like to announce besides the fantastic event at Longleaf Pine coming up on, what date was that again?
Oh, I do believe that's this Saturday, March 26, 4 to 8 o'clock at Longleaf Hotel. A special event right next to the recently opened bike share station. It's pretty exciting. I'm just saying. It should be a good time, from what I understand.
That, in addition to the upcoming Bike Month events that we've previously discussed, is there anything else going on folks would like to add? All right.
For anyone who missed it, I'll just re-add Oaks and Spokes events, March 24th. I don't know what time, so contact Oaks and Spokes.
I believe it's at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
6 o'clock. And I
6
think it'll
o'clock.
be at State of Beer, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
there you
State
go.
of Beer, the Advocacy Action Committee getting together. You said, what is it? When is it? It'll be this, I think, March 24th.
24th.
Yeah, so that's this Thursday. So there's a lot of events happening this week. It's action-packed.
This Thursday.
Thursday, March 24th, 6 to 8 o'clock, State of Beer, advocacy through action.
There's
I
also.
am happy to say I'm heading to Washington, D.C. for the League of American Bicyclists
Oh,
National
well,
Summit.
would you consider making a report when you come back? We would love.
I really hate writing reports, but I love telling a story.
How about an extemporaneous story? That'd be great. Yeah.
Your report can be verbal.
Can you show us a slideshow? You just take pictures and we'll sit and watch your. Anyway, I'd also like to announce that this evening we will be socializing over at Whiskey Kitchen, down at Whiskey Kitchen, just a block over. So please come join us.
A little socializing.
Yes.
Hello.
No discussing business.
It is actually highly doubtful I'm going to be there. I'm a little past some of my meds. I need to go down and get them ASAP.
Well, let's go get them.
Come back if I feel.
I believe that with that, if there's nothing else, we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.